So, UFC 260 this weekend, Tyron Woodley versus Vincente Luque. Vincente Luque won by submission in round one. That is 4 losses in a row for Tyron Woodley, so I guess we need to talk about that a little bit. Before we get onto that, as far as the fight went, it was very entertaining. One fight of the night. It was a little bit of a back and forth affair. Tyron Woodley looked a different Tyron Woodley, and when the fight started, he came out. The first thing he did was try and land a huge right hand. He then went back to his wrestling a little bit. Obviously, he's kind of got wrestling roots as Tyron Woodley. Excuse me. And there was a bit of a 2 and 4 up against the cage, and then Tyron Woodley landed a right hand. Big right hand landed just on the back of Vincente Luque's ear. You could see him sort of stumble a little bit, try and get his feet, and that is when Tyron Woodley attacked. He didn't take his time, he didn't think, and he attacked, and that's when Woodley got caught. Now, I don't begrudge Woodley for that, because he probably hasn't been in this position in a long time in one of his fights, and he was desperate. Once you're on a 3-fight skid in the UFC, you're desperate not to lose, and so he went in for the kill, and when he went in for the kill, he got caught. And you could see instantly when he received that shot, the fight was over. He could barely stand up. He stumbled down, put his hands down, backtracked up against the cage, was on wobbly feet. I thought the referee was going to jump in and stop it at that point. A few more shots then landed down to the ground, and Vincente Luque sunk in a Darce choke, and Woodley tapped, and that was the end of it. So Tyron Woodley has now lost 4 in a row. Notoriously, when a fighter loses 3 or 4 in a row, they get cut from the UFC. You also have to look at their age. I think Tyron Woodley's 38 or 39. And when you're 38 or 39, you've lost 3 or 4 fights in a row. That kind of spells the end. And I think even Dana was asked at the press conference, you know, what's next for Tyron Woodley? And he kind of said he's lost 4 in a row and he's 38. So didn't really answer the question, but he answered the question, if you know what I mean. So when you look at Tyron Woodley and his last 4 fights, obviously he lost the belt to Usman, he lost to Colby Covington, he lost to obviously just Vincente Luque, and in between there he obviously lost to Gilbert Burns. So it's difficult when you're the champion and you've been the champion for a while, and it's kind of like falling out of a tree and hitting every branch on the way down, which is what Tyron Woodley's doing. He was at the top of the tree in the welterweight division, and he's fallen, and he's hit Usman, he's hit Burns, he's hit Colby Covington, and he's hit Vincente Luque all the way down, and this will probably be, you'd think, be him out of the UFC. But I made a video and I was quite critical of Tyron Woodley recently, before obviously this fight happened, because of his 3-fight skid and the fact that he wasn't always the most entertaining person to watch. But this fight was entertaining, and he did give it his all, and he wasn't boring, and he did try and finish the fight, and he did win fight of the night. So on that performance, do I want to see Tyron Woodley cut? No. On his previous 6 or 7 performances, yeah, I don't want to watch him fight anymore. So I think this probably brings us onto another discussion as to what makes a fighter be cut from the UFC. Because it's not like other sports where, you know, if you're in a football team, they can't just cut you from the team. Yeah, you can sit on the subs bench, you cannot get picked, but you still get paid. You're still employed, and you are still there until the end of your contract. The UFC is a little bit different. If you sign a contract with the UFC, at any point, they can end that contract and cut you, and they haven't got to pay you anything out. So that's why it's a little bit different to other sports. So they can literally turn around to Tyron Woodley now and go, I know you've got 3 more fights on your deal, Tyron, but we've had enough of you, see you later. So that's an interesting kind of perspective when you look at this sport and you look at the company. Will we see a former welterweight champion like Tyron Woodley cut? I think we probably will. I actually predicted that he would get cut at the start of the year when they did their first round of cuts. He's obviously subsequently just fought and lost, so we'll probably see him cut again. As far as Vincente Luque goes, that's a big win for him. But at what point does Tyron Woodley stop becoming a big win? Because now everyone's beating him. Colby's beating him. Usman's beating him. Gilbert Burns is beating him. Vincente Luque's beating him. It's kind of, that's probably the last victory you can get over Tyron Woodley without it carrying any clout. So Vincente Luque has obviously got to look back up the division and pick his next opponent. and I think we know what's next for Tyron Woodley.